Hello and welcome back to Luby Living. So, since I posted that cutting board video, I got a few questions about it. Just they wanted to see some of the wood being cut and actually sanded rather than just kind of skipping from, okay, this is 120 grit, this is the next grit. So, believe it or not, I've actually made quite a few of those cutting boards since that video, and I've changed my technique quite a bit. So I'm going to show you kind of the original way I did it with not all the tools that I have now, and kind of my newer way where if you're planning on making a lot, I would go with this because it saves so much time. So when I get my wood, depending on where I get it, it comes on in planks like this. So it's probably 8 feet long. So first thing I do is kind of mark it out how I want my planks cut. So there's a line there. I kind of was guessing on which one. I was like, no, because there's a big divot here. You can't really see it in the video, but it'd take a lot to get out. So that piece is just going to be garbage, I think. Unless I save it for some random use that who knows what might come out of it. But for now, it's garbage. So then I got another line there on the other side of the divot. One there, and kind of a long piece where I'm going to make a lot of cuts and kind of make it into a rounder piece. It might be kind of awkward. It'll be a long little oval. But that's kind of the cuts I was asked about seeing in the video, so I'm going to do my best to show you those. And we got a short little piece here. So after you got your lines marked, and I didn't measure anything, I just kind of eyeballed it. Okay, this would be a nice tray, this would be a good size. And this long one here, it's going to be a long one, but you can see you got that nice dark ring in the center again, and I hate cutting that up if you can save it, so that's why that one's going to be kind of a longer piece. But yeah, so after I get it marked, I'll start cutting. So in my original video, I was using the table saw to cut these. It didn't work very well at all because we had such a long plank and we were trying to do such a narrow cut. The best way to do this would be if you had a sliding miter saw that could do it in one cut. The miter saw here can't do these in one cut. It'd take at least 2 or 3. It just wouldn't work. So I've been using the skill saw, and you just line it up with your mark and go. So you just go through then and cut on each one of your lines. When you're done, you'll end up with a bunch of smaller pieces like this. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to cut the rest of these down to usable sizes. So I got all my boards cut here, and I'm going to focus on this board here. I did end up with about 4 pieces, but this board's going to be the one most like the board in my original video. Because normally, honestly, if it weren't for the video, I probably wouldn't do it. I'd just leave it with square ends. But I'm going to try to answer these questions as best I can. So I'm going to round the edges and kind of show the cuts and what's being done. So it's got kind of a nice curve here. So I think I'm going to kind of follow that curve around out to the front. And then as for the back here, I'm not quite sure yet. I might just kind of do a subtle little cut in there. So to follow my curve, I just kind of pencil it out, and then again I'll get the skill saw back out and just do a whole bunch of straight cuts. So I'll kind of draw my lines out, show you what I got, and then we'll do the cuts with the skill saw again. So what I did here was I did my curves, and then out of that, I drew straight lines that kind of followed the curve. So we've got that first line there is my curve all the way around. And then I got that darker line that's kind of a straight line. And it semi follows the curve. So what I do is I cut the straight line out. And then with the sander, I finish it with the curve. So for example here, I've got a curve and then I got 2 straight lines so that I can cut one big chunk out there, cut that little corner out, and I'm pretty close to my curve. Here I was able to get most of it with just one straight line and have a little bit in that corner to notch out with the grinder. So for doing this, I use the skill saw again. I think that's the best tool for doing this, unless you had a jigsaw. The problem I found with my jigsaw was, being fair, it is super old, but it didn't have enough power to go through this hardwood. It was more for softwood, it seemed. But I think if you had a newer one or just a better one in general, you'd have no problem going through wood like this, and that would be your best tool. You wouldn't have to do the straight cuts. You could follow your curve around completely. But yeah, I'm going to use the skill saw again and cut these out. Well, that really didn't go that smooth, but I got it done. So this side turned out not too bad here. I can get the grinder there and finish that out. This side, I don't know what the heck I was doing, but I took off quite a bit there. I don't know if I'm crazy about that, but we'll smooth it out and see how it looks. So now all the bark's cleaned off. I rounded those a little bit nicer. One thing I like about the grinder is you can purposely kind of put divots in and like not keep edges straight. So like over here at the top there, I kind of divoted in a little bit. This long stretch over here, I made sure to leave it uneven kind of, because when have you ever seen a piece of wood that got cut straight off the tree that is perfectly straight? It doesn't happen. So with the grinder, you can stay in one spot a little bit longer and kind of just dig it in a little bit, leave curves in it to make it look more natural. One thing I often do, I'm not going to do it on this one because of the next step, but if you aren't going to use a planer like I am, I take the grinder, I just round those edges a little bit so that they're not a sharp 90. But anyways, now that we got the bark off and got our board cut out to the shape we want it, we're going to pull out the planer, which I didn't have in the first video, and I wish I did. So I'll show you how that works. So just a little hack here. I got the planer out, and if you have one and you use it at all, you know they make one heck of a mess. You also probably know that they have an adapter for a shop vac at the back, or any vacuum I guess, to suck up all that sawdust as it comes out. Well, unfortunately, my shop vac is too small and the adapter doesn't fit to my hose. So what I do, got an old coffee cup, I duct tape it there to the exhaust where all the sawdust comes out. I cut a little X in the bottom of the cup and I shove my hose in there, and then I tape that up too. It done it a few times, it works perfect. Yeah, so if you're on the same boat as me, give it a shot. It actually ends up working out really well. Saves you a lot of time in cleanup. But anyways, I'll get my vacuum taped up there, and then I'll finish off that piece of wood. So for anyone who hasn't used a planer before, it's pretty simple. You measure, get the thickness of your wood, set your gauge there, turn it on and just feed it through, and it's like a whole bunch of sharp knives that just go and finish the top of it off clean. This planer here, it's actually pretty sweet. It's got two cuts. So one, it does kind of a rough cut to kind of get any warps out of your board. And then you flick the switch and it does a finishing cut. I think it has twice as many cuts and it finishes it real smooth so that you're able to work with it doing whatever you're doing. So anyways, I've already set my depth, so I'm going to fire her up and start sending this through. So that's the new way that I finish boards. Works great. As you can see, it takes no time. Lickety split, you're done. The other way that you were asking about in the previous video was with the palm sander. And I'm going to just grab an old cutoff, probably that one with the big divot, and kind of show you how that goes. So I got the palm sander out here, and this was just a piece of wood that I said that divot's way too deep. We're not going to use this for anything that I can think of right now. Who knows, maybe I'll pull it out someday and be like, oh, this is perfect for whatever. But for now, it's just junk. So you're asking to see it wood that would actually be sanded. So pretty much, I'm not going to do a legit job because it would take way too long. But you would start with your lowest numbered grit sandpaper, so it is actually your grittiest. And then as you work through, you go up to a higher and higher number. So what you do is, it's pretty simple really. You just sorry, you can't hear what that's on, but you just run the sander over in no particular order. You just kind of make sure you get all of it. The orbital sander kind of moves in such a way that you're not going to get streaks. If I was going up and down here, you're not going to see that in the grain because of the way that this rotates. Whereas if you just had a random, like a palm sander, I keep going straight up and down, you may actually start to see that in the grain. Having said that, if I were only to sand here, like this whole patch, you would be able to tell it apart from this patch. But it's not going to ruin the grain of the wood, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. So, anyways, that was 5 seconds. And that looks good, don't get me wrong, but that planer goes way quicker. So, I'll kind of do it just a little bit more so you can see, but that's all there is to it. Just a quick demo. As you can see there, the grain's coming out a lot nicer with that sander than it was before. Well, it wasn't that, but it was a lot darker, and now it's coming out a lot nicer. You can see the grain of wood. I would probably switch some pads around this time if I was going to continue. I can't really tell you how to know when to switch pads. You just kind of go, once you start to see that, okay, this disc isn't making a difference anymore, you're going to switch to the next disc to start cutting it finer. It's kind of, the more you do it, the more you're able to see, okay, I'm done with this one, on to the next one. I don't know if I mentioned it, but you can actually hook a vacuum up to at least this or orbital sander. I don't know if they're all like that or not, but again, saves a lot of cleanup time. So I think I've covered all the questions I had from the previous video. If there's anything else, feel free to comment and I'll try to answer them again. One thing I'll point out right away before someone asks, this shirt, you probably saw most of the video laying down on the bench under the wood. The only purpose for that is this bench is dirty. It gets used for all sorts of stuff, so there's lots of oil and grease in it. I just didn't want to stain the wood off the bench. Thanks again. Be sure to subscribe.